A cornfield in 1940. Today, the world's greatest tank arsenal with more than 10,000 workers. On this track, 1 mile long and built in a figure 8, the products of the arsenal are tested. The Panzer onslaught against the Low Countries in France saw the great French army ill-equipped to deal with such an attack, paralyzed and slashed to ribbons by a new and terrible instrument, the tank. The rapid tactical move, the deep envelopment and pursuit, the exploitation of the breakthrough. Old words with a new import. The tanks moved 150 miles a day deep into enemy territory, to the very heart of enemy resistance, repeated the process day after day. The speed of the tank makes defense against it difficult. Anti-tank guns cannot be moved into position fast enough to be of use. The guns must be mounted on tanks of the same mobility and having the same protection as those attacking them. To make an invincible army, we need machines, trucks, planes, and tanks by tens, even hundreds of thousands. For these, we must go to the assembly lines of the nation. With the lessons of warfare in Europe plain to see, a tremendous expansion of tank building capacity has taken place. Here in the Detroit Tank Arsenal, the world's first great tank arsenal devoted entirely to the mass production of the tank, we forged the armaments of victory. To wage a desperate war, the immense resources of our industrial plant and the incomparable skill of the American worker have mobilized to meet a supreme test. Under this vast roof, we create the rolling forts of armor steel, the fighting tank with great firepower, fitting the American policy of aggressive mobile warfare. Production in factory and arsenal begins far behind the assembly lines. It starts with the machine. From drafting board and planning room come models, charts, drawings, blueprints, and designs. Designs for the lathe to machine the rotor ring of the cupola for easy rotation, giving the tank complete all-round firing range. Designs for calipers and micrometers. Instruments to test required tolerances, for the greatest precision is demanded. Here is the housing for the powerful 75s, a miniature fort having its own artillery to smash resistance as it blasts its way to the enemy rear. The tank, with its force and scope, is capable of carrying on a small war all alone. Here, the planers rough-cut the wheel suspension on which the tank will be suspended. The heat of the tool against the armored steel. Hard, tough steel requiring good machine tools, tougher than the material they mill. 1,000 heavy automatic machines, 8,000 tools, gauges, and fixtures had to be designed, built, installed to get the tanks rolling. And thousands of workers had to be trained for exacting new skills, all paying willing tribute to a great tradition, to the long-recorded achievement of American gunsmiths, artisans, mechanics, to the tool builders of New England, New York, Philadelphia, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Detroit, Milwaukee, and the West. From 1920 to 1935, around 30 tanks were built in the United States. These were all development or pilot tanks made for experimental purposes. The sudden creation of a vast citizen army and the lessons of warfare in Europe brought a great expansion of tank building capacity. But large as initial plans and orders were, these have been doubled and quadrupled in the face of world conflict. Today, the most advanced methods of industrial production, the most modern in tool and machinery design, are joined together in an epic struggle to determine the destiny of free people everywhere. Again, precision is the watchword. An error of a hair's breadth may mean the difference between life and death for 7 soldiers who will be called upon to man this giant of destruction. Teeth are cut into the cupola rotary ring. Motor-driven, the turret, of which this forms the base, will turn a complete circle. A complete arc of withering fire can be shot from the 37-millimeter gun soon to be mounted in it. Teeth, too, for the master gear, cut into hard, strong steel to mesh and drive the tank forward. These lend speed and bite to the attack. The modern tank is a complex mechanical marvel. Making of it involves the utmost ingenuity and correlation of manufacturing effort. We are building uncounted numbers of these machines, putting them to work, to labor with free men fighting for what they cherish. Men and machines are the backbone of the crusade to rid the world of tyranny, the hope and promise of the future. Before actual manufacturing could begin, plant layouts had to be made, the necessary building space provided, the proper tools and other equipment brought together, materials requisitioned, procured, assembled, all for the single purpose of making tanks. Giant multiple drills of sufficient weight and size to machine the heavy parts, boring dozens of holes in one downward motion, had to be designed and built. Here are the gears and flywheels of the punch press in one of dozens of departments, making parts which flow to the main assembly, into the finished tank. The oxygen pantograph torch, cutting out the sprocket gears that will guide the caterpillar tracks. These are cut in triplicate. From spring 1940 to the 1941 Battle of Libya was only 18 months, but it was long enough for American mass production to fill our Army's first tank requirements and have some left for our allies. Now the waste metal sheet is removed. The material will be reclaimed, melted down, used again. The tips of the sprockets are flame hardened. Minimum weight is essential. It increases speed, gives additional mobility in difficult terrain. High alloy steels are used, which are heat treated to develop their full strength.